The internal and external challenges facing King China added a great deal of pressure to the Qing dynasty and weakened it overall. External challenges, such as trade and various religious conflict, added a great deal of pressure for the Qing dynasty. The British East India Trading Company created a monopoly in the trade of opium, which led to the Opium Wars spanning from 1839 to 1860. This weakened the Qing armies a great deal. Christianity first broke into China in the 19th century as well. This conflicted with the traditional Chinese religions and led to the internal conflicts and disagreements. Internal challenges also added a great deal of pressure. Population growth caused a strain in food supply, which caused famine. Also, rebellions such as the White Lotus Rebellion of 1796 to 1804 weakened the Qing forces. This led to the other rebellions such as the Taiping Rebellion, which was led by a heterodox Christian named Hong Xiu Quang from 1850 to 1864. This put a great deal of pressure on the Qing government.
The Opium Wars were from 1839 to 1842 and 1856 to 1860. They were over the trade disputes between Great Britain and the Qing dynasty. The British traded without formal rights from China, so they were only allowed in Zhoushan, Ximen, and Guangzhou. Guangzhou, aka Canton, became the main trade port for foreign countries. After formal trade was established, the British suffered because they wanted Chinese goods, but China didn't need British goods. Britain had to trade their gold currency for silver currency just to trade with China. After Britain began trading Indian opium, the Chinese rulers prohibited opium trade. Opium was the main trade for the British, so they began smuggling it in. After unsuccessful talks to reopen trade, the British Indian Army invaded China. The Qing dynasty demanded a treaty in 1842. This resulted in the British acquiring Hong Kong and other ports. The Second Opium War began in 1856, when the Chinese captured the British ship Arrow and released the crew. The British demanded an apology. It wasn't given, and the British bombarded Canton. The war raged until 1860. It ended with China granting rights to British merchants and missionaries to travel inside the country. The Spears of Influence was how the Western Europeans came to China and changed the way the government ran. They opened China up to foreign trade and democracy. This moved China from dynasties to republic in the late 1800s and early 1900s.
Often referred to as one of the bloodiest civil wars in history, the Taiping Rebellion was an uprising by China's famine-stricken working class. The rebellion began under the influence of Hong Jiquan, a man who claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus. Feng Yunshan, a friend of Hong's, used similar ideas to organize a religious group among impoverished peasants called the God Worshippers Society. These peasants enacted the rebellion, and on January 1st, 1851, Hong proclaimed a new dynasty, the Taiping Tangguo, or Heavenly Kingdom of Great Peace. After capturing the city of Nanjing during the rebellion, Hong established it as the dynasty's capital. Also, the Western world paid close attention to this civil war. At first they backed the rebellion. However, the idea of the collapse of foreign trade was brought up, and they offered military aid to the ever-victorious army and protected Shanghai from the Taipings. Unfortunately, an estimated 20 million people, primarily civilians, died during the Taiping Rebellion. Over time, internal instability and strategic misfires led to the collapse of the Taipings.
The Boxer Rebellion was a proto-nationalist movement by the Chinese society opposing foreign imperialism and Christianity, and it took place from 1898 to 1901. The Chinese overall disliked the idea of foreign traders, political invasion, economic manipulation, and missionary involvement in their society. This eventually led to the Chinese people forcing violent revolts against foreign interests and people. In June of 1990, Beijing Boxer fighters, which were Chinese citizens, had forced foreigners to seek refuge. And by the end of the month, Chinese government and rule supported the Chinese people and declared war on foreign powers. Chinese Christians and foreigners were held hostage for 55 days in the legation quarter of Beijing. The siege was eventually ended when the Eight-Nation Alliance, which consisted of Russia, Great Britain, France, The United States, Japan, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy brought 20,000 armed troops to China and took control over Beijing. On September 7, 1901, the Boxer Protocol was signed, ending the Boxer Rebellion and mandating China pay 450 million taels of silver to the 8 nations involved.